Dr. Alina Martinez pressed her face against the cold metal window of Kepler Research Station. Her breath made small clouds on the glass as she watched another escape shuttle explode in the darkness of space. Orange flames bloomed like a deadly flower and then died in the airless void. That was the fourth shuttle today. It's the fourth group of people who thought they could outrun death. The Zephyrian ships moved like hungry sharks through the debris. Their dark hulls gleamed under the light of the distant star. Alina counted 6 of the smaller raider ships circling the station like vultures. Behind them, blocking out the stars, hung their massive mothership. The locals called it the Bone Harvester, and Alina now understood why. It was huge, almost a mile long, covered in spikes and weapon ports that glowed with evil red light. Dr. Martinez, you need to get away from the window. Captain Jake Sullivan limped toward her, his security uniform torn and bloody.
His left
arm hung at a strange angle, broken during the last boarding attempt. Dark circles ringed his eyes from 3 days without sleep. They might see you. Lena turned away from the window, but kept looking back. How many people were on that shuttle, Jake? 15. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. He had learned to stop feeling after the second day of watching people die. It's mostly families from the research labs. The station shook as another energy blast hit their failing shields. Lights flickered in the corridor, and somewhere in the distance, an alarm started beeping. Lena and Jake walked toward the central hub where the last survivors had gathered. Their footsteps echoed in the empty hallways that once buzzed with the voices of 300 researchers, engineers, and their families. Dr. Carlos Rivera looked up from his tablet when they entered the main area. His usually neat hair stuck up in all directions, and his lab coat was stained with grease and blood. The power core is failing faster than I thought, he said without looking at them. Maybe 6 hours left, not 8. Alina felt her heart sink even lower. 6 hours. Then the shields would collapse, and the Zephyrians would come aboard for what they called the harvest. She had read the reports from other stations. The aliens needed something from living brains, some kind of chemical that only worked when the person was still alive and aware. It kept their victims conscious during the entire process. 43 people sat scattered around the hub. Some families huddled together on blankets. Others sat alone, staring at nothing. The youngest was 8-year-old Lucy Chen, who clutched a small stuffed rabbit from Earth. Her mother, Dr. Amy Chen, held her close and whispered soft words that Alina could not hear. Lucy looked up with big dark eyes. Mama wanted the rescue. Ships coming? Amy Chen's face went pale. She looked around the room at the other adults, silently begging someone to give her an answer that would not break her daughter's heart. Lena wanted to say something hopeful, but the words stuck in her throat like broken glass. Soon, baby, Amy finally whispered. Very soon. But everyone knew the truth. The nearest coalition patrol was 2 weeks away. The long-range communications had been destroyed in the first attack. Even if someone had heard their distress calls, help would arrive too late. They were alone in the dark with monsters at the odd door. Captain Sullivan gathered the security team near the sealed blast doors. Only 5 men remained from his original squad of 20. They had fought hard during the boarding attempts, but the Zephyrians were stronger and faster than humans. Their weapons cut through metal like paper, and their armor turned most bullets into harmless sparks. We hold this position, Sullivan told his men. When they break through, we buy time for the families to reach the emergency shelters. Good will the shelters do? Asked Sergeant Pete Adams. His young face looked older now, aged by fear and exhaustion. They'll cut through those doors too. Sullivan had no answer. The shelters might buy them an extra hour, maybe 2. But the Zephyrians would find them eventually. They always did. Dr. Alina Martinez walked over to the communication station. The main array was destroyed, but they still had a short-range emergency transmitter. She had been sending messages for 3 days, broadcasting on every frequency. New, so far, the only reply had been silence. She sat down at the console and began typing another message. Her fingers shook as she worked. This might be their last chance to tell the universe what happened here. Someone should know that they had tried to fight back. Someone should remember their names. This is Kepler Research Station in the Arcturus. System, she spoke into the microphone. We are under attack by Zephyrian raiders. 43 souls remain alive. Our power will fail in 6 hours. If anyone receives this message, please tell our families that we did not give up. Tell them, we were not forgotten. The message went out into space, traveling at the speed of light toward distant stars. Alina knew it would take years to reach the nearest human colony. By then, there would be nothing left of Kepler Station except empty metal and old bones. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. The station had been her home for 3 years. She'd come here to study the strange plants that grew on Arcturus Prime's moons. Life that could exist in the cold void between worlds. It seemed important. At the time, now it felt small and pointless. Dr. Martinez. Lucy Chen stood beside her chair, still holding her toy rabbit. Are you sad? Elena looked down at the little girl. Lucy had her father's nose and her mother's gentle smile. Dr. Chen's husband had died in the first attack while trying to fix the shield generators. Lucy did not know yet. Her mother could not find the words to tell her. Yes, Lucy, I am sad. Me too, but Mama says being sad is okay. She says it means we love people. Lena felt tears start to form in her eyes. Your mama is very smart. Well, you read me a story? I have a book about Earth animals. Lena wanted to say yes, but another explosion shook the station, stronger this time. The lights went out for several seconds before the emergency power kicked in. Red warning lights bathed everything in bloody color. Dr. Rivera shouted from across the room. They're targeting the reactor directly now. We have less time than I thought. Captain Sullivan checked his weapon and looked at his remaining men. This is it. Everyone into the inner shelter. Move now. The families gathered their few belongings and headed toward the reinforced doors at the back of the hub. Lena helped Amy Chen carry Lucy, who had fallen asleep despite the noise and shaking. The little girl's toy rabbit watched everything with black button eyes. As they sealed themselves into the emergency shelter, Elena sent one last message into the void. She did not expect an answer. She did not expect rescue. She only hoped that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, someone would hear their voices and remember that they had lived. The bone. Harvester moved closer to the dying station, its weapons charged with deadly light, preparing for the final assault. In a few hours, when the shields failed and the harvest began, the Zephyrians would add 43 more names to their long list of victims. But Lena's message traveled outward through the cosmic dark, carrying with it the desperate hope of people who refused to surrender, raced past dead worlds and sleeping stars, searching for someone who might care enough to answer. In the cold silence of space, that message was all they had left. 300 light-years away from Kepler Station, the human warship USS Liberty cut through hyperspace like a sword through black water. Captain Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge watching the stars streak past in lines of blue-white light. His ship was the newest and most powerful vessel in the human fleet. It carried enough weapons to destroy a small planet and engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of years. Ryan had been hunting Zephyrian raiders for 8 months now. The alien pirates had been attacking human colonies and research stations across the outer rim, left no survivors and took no prisoners. Every world they touched became a graveyard filled with empty buildings and scattered bones. The Liberty was not like other warships. Most Navy vessels stayed close to human space, protecting the core worlds and major trade routes. But Ryan and his crew volunteered for something different. They went hunting in the dark places between stars, tracking down raiders before they could strike again. Commander Lisa Park sat at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across control screens that showed weapon systems and sensor readings. She had served with Ryan for 5 years, following him from ship to ship as they both climbed through the ranks. Lisa could read star charts like other people read books, and she knew every trick the raiders used to hide their ships. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson from the communications station. Pete was young for his rank, barely 25, but he had magic fingers when it came to radio signals and computer networks. Could pull voices out of static that seemed impossible to hear. Ryan walked over to Pete's station. "What do you have?" "It's a distress call, sir. It's very faint. coming from the Vega system. Adjusted his controls, trying to clean up the signal. It's been bouncing around space for days, getting weaker each time it hits an asteroid or gas cloud. The bridge fell quiet as Pete played the message through the speakers. Dr. Alina Martinez's voice came through the static, tired and scared, but still strong. She spoke about Zephyrian attacks and 43 survivors running out of time. The last part of her message hit the crew like a physical blow.
Ow.
Tell our families we died fighting.
Ow, me.
Tell them we were not forgotten. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had heard too many messages like this one. Good people calling out into the void as death closed in around them. Most of the time, by the time rescue ships arrived, there was nothing left but wreckage and silence. How old is this transmission? Ryan asked. Pete checked his readings. About 6 hours, sir? But given the distance and signal degradation, it could have been sent as recently as 4 hours ago. Ryan did quick math in his head. The Vega system was deep in unexplored space, far from any military patrols. At maximum speed, the Liberty could reach them in 12 hours. That might be fast enough if the people on Kepler Station could hold out just a little longer. All hands, this is the captain, Ryan announced over the ship's intercom. We have received a distress call from civilians under attack by Zephyrian raiders. We are changing course immediately to provide assistance. All departments prepare for combat operations. The Liberty's crew moved with practiced efficiency. Chief Engineer Danny Miller pushed the fusion reactors beyond their normal limits, coaxing extra speed from engines that were already running at maximum power. In the medical bay, Dr. Susan Wright prepared emergency treatment centers for wounded survivors. Throughout the ship, 800 men and women made ready for battle. Danny Miller was a short, stocky man who had spent 15 years working on starship engines. His hands were permanently stained with grease and radiation burns. But he could make any machine run better than its designers ever intended. When Ryan asked for more speed, Danny found ways to give it to him. We're pushing the reactors pretty hard, Captain, Danny reported from the engine room. But I can hold this pace for another 10 hours before we risk a containment breach. That should be enough, Ryan replied. Just keep us flying, Danny. Dr. Susan Wright had served as a combat medic before joining the Liberty's crew. She had seen what Zephyrian weapons could do to human bodies. The aliens used energy weapons that burned through flesh and bone, leaving wounds that were hard to treat. Susan made sure her medical team had plenty of burn gel and surgical nanobots ready. Captain, if these people have been under attack for days, they're going to need more than basic first aid, Susan said over the comm. I'm preparing the main surgery for multiple trauma cases. Ryan appreciated his crew's dedication, but he knew they might be racing toward an empty grave. The Zephyrians rarely left survivors, needed living brains for their harvesting process. But once they extracted what they wanted, they killed everyone else. Rescue ships usually found nothing but broken stations drifting in space. Commander? Lisa Park pulled up star charts of the Vega system on her main screen. She studied the tactical situation, looking for advantages the Liberty could use. The system had one large gas giant with several moons, including the one where Kepler Station was located. It's lots of places for enemy ships to hide, but also lots of cover for a rescue operation. What do we know about Zephyrian fleet tactics? Lisa asked the bridge crew. Ensign Mark Taylor, the youngest officer on the bridge, pulled up intelligence files on his screen. They usually travel in groups of 10 to 15 ships. One large mothership supported by smaller raiders. They prefer to surround their targets and pick them apart slowly. Cowards, muttered Sergeant Ben Clark from the Marine Station. Ben commanded the Liberty's ground forces, 200 soldiers trained for boarding actions and planetary assault. He had fought Zephyrians before and hated everything about them. They only attack targets that can't fight back. Ryan studied the tactical information while the Liberty raced through hyperspace. The Zephyrians had advantages in numbers and position, but human ships were generally faster and better armed. The real challenge would be getting close enough to help without letting the raiders escape or harm their prisoners. Pete Johnson continued monitoring long-range communications, hoping to pick up more transmissions from Kepler Station. The signal was getting weaker as the Liberty moved away from the relay stations that boosted interstellar messages. Soon, they would be flying blind into whatever waited in the Vega system. "Captain, I'm losing the signal," Pete reported. "Last transmission was about 30 minutes ago. Same message, but weaker." "At least we know they were still alive 30 minutes ago," Ryan said. "That's something." The bridge crew worked in focused silence as the Liberty pushed deeper into unexplored space. They were leaving behind the safety of human territory, flying toward a battle against unknown odds. Most Navy ships would wait for backup or call in a full fleet. The Liberty was different. They answered distress calls no matter where they led. Ryan walked to the main viewing screen and watched stars streak past like distant suns. Somewhere, ahead in the darkness, 43 people were fighting for their lives against monsters. A little girl named Lucy Chen was probably scared and calling for her mother. Dr. Elena Martinez was probably still sending messages into space, hoping someone would hear. "How much longer to the Vega system?" Ryan asked. 11 hours and 43 minutes at current speed," Lisa replied. 11 hours. Ryan hoped it would be enough time. He thought about the message they had received about people who believed they were going to die alone and forgotten. They were wrong about being forgotten. The Liberty was coming, carrying 800 humans who had sworn an oath to protect innocent lives. The ship's engines roared louder as Danny Miller pushed them even harder. In the medical bay, Dr. Wright finished her preparations and waited for casualties. Throughout the Liberty, crew members checked their weapons and said quiet prayers to whatever gods they believed in. They were racing death itself across the void. Carrying hope to people who had none left was what humans did best, running toward danger when others needed help, no matter what the cost. The USS Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Arcturus system like a falling star. Blue-white energy exploded from the ship's quantum drives as it slowed from faster than light speed. The massive warship appeared in normal space. With a flash that lit up every sensor for millions of miles around, Captain Ryan Hayes gripped his command chair as the ship shook from the violent transition. Outside the viewing windows, stars stopped streaking and became steady points of light again. The Liberty had crossed 300 light-years in 11 hours, pushing its engines harder than they were ever meant to go. "All stop," Ryan ordered. "Give me a tactical scan of the system." Commander Lisa Park's fingers flew across her control panels as the ship's powerful sensors reached out into space. Information flooded her screens, painting a picture of what waited for them in the darkness. What she saw made her blood run cold. "Captain, I have multiple contacts around the gas giant Arcturus Prime. One large vessel, approximately 1 kilometer in length. 15 smaller ships in escort formation." Lisa's voice stayed calm, but Ryan could hear the tension underneath. "Sir, I'm detecting debris fields consistent with destroyed escape craft." Right. Ryan felt his jaw tighten. They were too late to save everyone, but maybe not too late to save someone. "What about the research station?" "Kepler Station is still there, sir. Hull breaches in multiple sections, but I'm reading power signatures and life signs. Weak, but definitely present." A cheer went up from the bridge crew. After 11 hours of desperate flying, they had arrived to find survivors still alive. It was more than Ryan had dared to hope for. Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson worked frantically at his communications station, trying to reach the research station. The Zephyrian ships were jamming most frequencies, but Pete had tricks that alien pirates had never seen before. He found a narrow band that was still clear and boosted the signal strength. "Kepler Station, this is the USS Liberty. Please respond." Static filled the bridge speakers for long seconds. Then a woman's voice came through, weak but unmistakably human. Dr. Elena Martinez sounded like she was speaking from inside a dream. "Liberty? Did you say Liberty? Are we really seeing a human warship?" Pete grinned and gave Ryan a thumbs up. "We have contact, sir." Ryan took the microphone from Pete. "Dr. Martinez, this is Captain Ryan Hayes of the USS Liberty. We received your distress call. How many survivors do you have?" 43 souls, Captain, including 12 children." Elena's voice broke with emotion. "We thought no one was coming. We thought we were going to die alone. Not today, Doctor. We're going to get you out of there." Ryan handed the microphone back to Pete and turned to study the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet had arranged itself around Kepler Station like the petals of a deadly flower. The massive mothership, the Bone Harvester, hung directly above the research station like a mechanical vulture. Its smaller raiders formed a protective screen around both vessels. "They're using the station as a shield," Lisa observed. "If we attack directly, we risk hitting the people we came to save." Ryan nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were not stupid. They had positioned themselves so that any rescue attempt would endanger the very people the Liberty had come to protect. It was a clever trap. It's designed to keep human warships at a distance, while the harvest continued. On board the Bone Harvester, Harvester Prime studied the new arrival through compound eyes that glowed like red embers. The Zephyrian fleet commander had been hunting in this region of space for 3 cycles, destroying research stations and colonies without opposition. This was the first time anyone had come to challenge him. The human ship was large, almost as big as his own vessel, but Harvester Prime felt no concern. Humans were weak creatures, soft and slow compared to the mighty Zephyrian race. Their ships might carry impressive weapons, but they lacked the killer instinct needed for real warfare. Signal. The human vessel, Harvester Prime, ordered his communications officer. "Tell them to withdraw or be destroyed. These prey belong to us now." The message reached the Liberty a few minutes later. Pete Johnson translated the alien language and played it for the bridge crew. Several officers laughed when they heard the Zephyrian demands. "Tell him we decline his generous offer," Ryan said dryly. "And Pete, make sure he understands that he's the one who should be withdrawing." Ryan turned to address his crew over the ship's intercom. His voice carried to every corner of the Liberty, from the engine room to the Marine barracks to the medical bay. "All hands, this is the captain. We have 43 people counting on us to get them home alive. The Zephyrians think they can use innocent civilians as human shields. They think we'll back down rather than risk a fight. They're about to learn something important about the human race." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Danny Miller pushed the fusion reactors to combat power. Energy flowed through the ship's systems like liquid lightning, charging weapons that could crack a moon in half. The Liberty was built for war, and now it would show what human engineering could accomplish. Dr. Susan Wright finished her preparations in the medical bay. Her trauma team stood ready to treat wounded survivors, but first the Liberty had to reach them. Susan had seen what Zephyrian weapons could do to human bodies. She prayed that Captain Hayes could end this fight quickly. Sergeant Ben Clark briefed his Marines on rescue operations while they checked their weapons and armor. 200 soldiers prepared to board Kepler Station and evacuate the survivors. They had trained for this kind of mission, but training was different from reality. These Marines were about to find out what real combat felt like. "Tactical, give me firing solutions on the outer perimeter ships," Ryan ordered. "Target their engines first. I want to disable them, not vaporize them." Lisa Park's fingers danced across her controls as the Liberty's targeting computers locked onto the Zephyrian raiders. The human ship carried weapons that most alien races had never imagined. Quantum torpedoes that could think for themselves, particle beams that moved at the speed of light, fusion cannons that could burn through any armor ever made. "All weapons ready, Captain? Firing solutions locked." Ryan took one last look at the tactical display. 15 enemy ships against 1 human warship. On paper, the odds looked terrible. But Ryan had spent 8 months learning how Zephyrians fought. They were used to hunting helpless prey, not tangling with something that could fight back. "Dr. Martinez, this is Captain Hayes," Ryan said into the microphone. "I need you to get everyone into the most protected part of your station. Things are about to get interesting out here." Elena's voice came back through the static, stronger now that she had hope again. "Understood, Captain. We're moving to the emergency shelter now. And Captain ... thank you for coming." Ryan smiled grimly as he watched his crew make final preparations for battle. The Liberty was outnumbered, but not outgunned. The Zephyrians had made a critical mistake when they decided to threaten human civilians. They were about to discover what happened when someone made humanity angry. "All stations report ready, sir," Lisa announced. Ryan settled back in his command chair and watched the enemy ships through the main viewing screen. Somewhere behind that wall of alien steel, 43 people waited for rescue. A little girl named Lucy Chen was probably holding her toy rabbit and wondering if the humans would really save them. Fire when ready, Commander Park. The USS Liberty opened fire, and the darkness of space erupted in deadly light. The first quantum torpedoes launched from the USS Liberty like deadly shooting stars. Each torpedo carried an artificial brain smarter than most living creatures, able to think and change course as it flew through space. The Zephyrian Raiders had never seen weapons like these before. The torpedoes danced between the enemy ships like fireflies made of death. When the Zephyrians tried to shoot them down, the torpedoes split apart and reformed, impossible to target. 6 of the smaller raider ships exploded in brilliant nuclear fire before Harvester Prime could even give orders to his fleet. Impossible, the alien commander hissed through his breathing slits. No weapon moves like that on the Liberty's bridge. Commander Lisa Park watched her targeting displays with cold satisfaction. The quantum torpedoes were humanity's newest weapon, and the Zephyrians had no defense against them. Each torpedo could think faster than any living pilot, making decisions in microseconds that took others minutes to consider. Direct hits on targets 7 through 12, Lisa reported. 6 enemy ships destroyed. No survivors detected. Captain Ryan Hayes nodded approvingly. The first strike had cut the enemy fleet in half, but the remaining ships were moving to attack positions. The real battle was just beginning. Harvester Prime screamed orders at his remaining captains. 9 ships remained of his once proud fleet, including his massive mothership. The humans had hurt him badly, but he still had enough firepower to destroy their single vessel. He would make them pay for daring to challenge the mighty Zephyrian Empire. All ships converge on the human vessel, Harvester Prime commanded. Ignore the space station. We'll harvest the prey after we crush these fools. The Zephyrian ships moved like angry wasps toward the Liberty, their weapons charged with red energy that pulsed like angry heartbeats. Beams prepared to turn the human warship into floating scrap metal. But Captain Hayes had fought aliens before. He knew their tactics and their weaknesses. When the enemy ships rushed forward in a tight formation, he was ready for them. All power to engines, Ryan ordered. Take us into the debris field from the destroyed shuttles. A hunting cat through the wreckage of the escape craft that had tried to flee Kepler Station days before. The massive warship slipped between chunks of twisted metal and frozen atmosphere. Using the debris as cover from enemy weapons, Chief Engineer Danny Miller worked miracles in the engine room. When a Zephyrian plasma blast overloaded the primary reactor, Danny crawled through radiation-flooded tunnels to restore power. His skin burned from the deadly energy, but he kept working. The Liberty needed every bit of power he could give it. Engine power restored, Captain, Danny reported through gritted teeth. But I'm reading damage to the quantum drive matrix. One more hit like that, and we'll be stuck in normal space. Brian understood the warning. Without their quantum drives, the Liberty could not jump to hyperspace if the battle went badly. They were committed to this fight, whether they won or lost. The Zephyrian ships found them in the debris field and opened fire with everything they had. Space lit up with energy, beams and missile trails as the two forces clashed. The Liberty's shields flared like a small sun as enemy weapons hammered against them. Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson hunched over his communications station, sweat dripping onto his controls. He had managed to hack into the Zephyrian communication network, listening to their tactical chatter and feeding the information to Lisa's targeting computers. They're trying to surround us, Pete warned. 3 ships moving to our port side, 2 more coming around to starboard. Lisa used the intelligence to deadly effect. Liberty's weapons tracked the enemy ships with impossible accuracy, striking weak points that the Zephyrians thought were hidden. Fusion cannons designed to crack planets burned through alien armor like paper. 2 more raiders exploded under the Liberty's assault. A 3rd ship lost its engines and spun helplessly through space, venting atmosphere and crew into the void. The odds were getting better, but the remaining Zephyrians fought with desperate fury. On Kepler Station, Dr. Elena Martinez and the other survivors huddled in the emergency shelter while the battle raged outside. The station shook with each nearby. Explosion. And the lights flickered as power systems struggled to keep working. Little Lucy Chen pressed her face against a small window, watching the light show in space. "Look, Mama," she whispered to Dr. Amy Chen. "The human ship is dancing with the bad guys." Ami held her daughter close, trying not to let her fear show. The Liberty was fighting hard, but it was still outnumbered. Battle. Zephyrians would take their anger out on the survivors. Captain Jake Sullivan checked his weapon and looked at his remaining security officers. 5 men with small arms against alien raiders with advanced technology. If the Zephyrians boarded the station again, there would be little they could do to stop them. "Stay ready," Sullivan told his men. "If those monsters get past the Liberty, we make them pay for every step they take." The battle reached its climax when Harvester Prime realized his fleet was being destroyed. The human ship moved like nothing he had ever seen, appearing where his weapons could not reach and striking with deadly precision. His proud raiders were being picked apart one by one. In desperation, the alien commander made a fatal decision. He would ram his massive mothership directly into Kepler Station. If he could not have the prey, then no one would, and everyone aboard it would die in the collision. The bone harvester turned its bulk toward the helpless space station. Its engines roared to life, pushing the kilometer-long ship toward its target. On the station, alarms began screaming as sensors detected the incoming threat. "Captain Hayes," Elena's voice crackled over the radio. "The big ship is heading straight for us. Impact in 3 minutes." Ryan saw the tactical display and felt his blood turn to ice. The bone harvester was too big and too close for the Liberty's weapons to stop. Even if they destroyed it, the wreckage would still hit the station with enough force to kill everyone aboard. There was only one way to save the 43 souls on Kepler Station. "All hands brace for impact," Ryan announced over the ship's intercom. "We're going to ram that alien ship and push it away from the station." The bridge crew looked at their captain with shock and admiration. Ramming the bone harvester would probably destroy both ships. It was suicide, but it was the only way to save innocent lives. Lisa Park input the collision course into her navigation computer. Her hands shook slightly as she worked, but her voice stayed steady. "Course laid in, Captain. Impact in 90 seconds. Dr. Susan Wright secured her medical bay and said a quick prayer. In the engine room, Danny Miller pushed the fusion reactors beyond their safety limits one last time. Throughout the Liberty, 800 crew members prepared to give their lives for people they had never met. The USS Liberty accelerated toward the bone harvester like a spear thrown by an angry god. The 2 massive ships rushed toward each other on a collision course that would end with both vessels destroyed. But 43 people on Kepler Station would live to see another day. Harvester Prime saw the human ship coming and tried to change course, but it was too late. The Liberty was faster and more maneuverable than his ancient mothership. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated human determination. The 2 ships collided in a flash of light that could be seen from 3 star systems away. The collision between the USS Liberty and the Bone Harvester lit up space like a newborn star. Both massive ships crumpled and twisted as they slammed together, their hulls tearing apart in showers of sparks and metal. The impact pushed the alien mothership away from Kepler Station, sending it tumbling toward the empty darkness between planets. Dr. Elena Martinez felt the research station shake from the shockwave of the explosion. Emergency lights flickered red across the walls of their shelter as pieces of wreckage bounced off the station's damaged hull. But they were alive. Liberty had saved them with the ultimate sacrifice. "Is everyone okay?" Elena called out to the other survivors huddled in the emergency shelter. Voices answered back through the darkness, scared but grateful to still be breathing. Little Lucy Chen clutched her toy rabbit tighter and looked up at her mother with wide eyes. "What happened to the nice people on the big ship?" Lucy asked Doctor. Amy Chen struggled to find words that would not break her daughter's heart. The truth was too heavy for an 8-year-old to carry. "They saved us, baby. They were very brave." Captain Jake Sullivan worked his way to the communication station, his broken arm making every movement painful. The main communications array was still destroyed, but they had backup systems that might reach nearby space. He needed to send a Distress signal for any other human ships in the area. This is Kepler Station calling any coalition vessels. Sullivan broadcast on all emergency frequencies. We have 43 survivors in need of immediate evacuation. The USS Liberty engaged hostile forces and Wall was lost with all hands while protecting us. His voice broke on the last words. 800 human beings had died saving people they never met. It was the kind of sacrifice that legends were made of, but Sullivan wished the legends could have been written differently. 3 hours later, the first rescue ships arrived. The UN's Mercy led a small fleet of medical vessels and escort cruisers that had been patrolling nearby systems. Captain Rebecca Stone commanded the rescue operation, her face grim as she surveyed the wreckage field where 2 mighty warships had died together. "Launch all shuttles," Captain Stone ordered. "I want every survivor off that station within the hour, and send salvage teams to search for Liberty survivors." The rescue shuttles docked with Kepler Station like gentle birds landing on a broken tree. Medical teams rushed aboard to treat the survivors, many of whom had not eaten a proper meal in days. Dr. Susan Wright would have been proud to see how quickly her colleagues worked to save lives. Alina Martinez was among the first to be evacuated. As her shuttle pulled away from the dying research station, she pressed her face against the window and looked out at the debris field. Somewhere in that twisted metal were the remains of Captain Ryan Hayes and his crew. Heroes who had traveled across the galaxy to answer a desperate call for help. The shuttle docked with the Mercy 20 minutes later. Alina stumbled into the ship's medical bay, where doctors immediately began treating her for exhaustion and radiation exposure. But she pushed away their hands and grabbed the arm of the nearest medical officer. "You have to understand, Alina," said urgently. "What happened here was not just a rescue mission. Those people on the Liberty came for us even though they knew they might die. They heard strangers calling for help, and they came running." The medical officer, Dr. Carl Davis, had served in the human fleet for 10 years. He had seen many battles and rescued many survivors. But something in Elena's voice made him stop and listen. 800 people, Elena continued, tears streaming down her face. 800 people who could have been safe at home with their families. But they chose to risk everything for 43 strangers. Do you understand what that means?
Doctor?
Davis nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand very well. The rescue operation continued for hours. Every survivor was brought aboard the medical ships and given the best care the human fleet could provide. Lucy Chen was reunited with her toy rabbit, which had somehow survived everything that happened. The little girl asked every doctor and nurse she met if they knew the brave people who had saved her. Captain Stone filed her official report 3 days later as the rescue fleet headed back toward human space. Her words would be read by admirals and politicians across the coalition, but she tried to write them for the families of the Liberty's crew as well. The USS Liberty arrived at Kepler Station to find 43 civilians under attack by superior enemy forces. His crew engaged a Zephyrian fleet of 15 vessels with complete disregard for their own safety. When the enemy mothership attempted to ram the research station, Captain Hayes ordered his ship to intercept the attack through direct collision. This action resulted in the complete loss of the Liberty and all hands, but saved every civilian life aboard Kepler Station. The story of the Liberty's sacrifice spread through human space like wildfire. News reports carried Elena's account of the rescue across hundreds of worlds. Other species began to take notice as well. The idea that humans would risk everything for strangers seemed impossible to many alien races. Dr. Carlos Rivera, the physicist who had counted down their final hours on Kepler Station, spent weeks writing his scientific report on what had happened. But his conclusions went far beyond physics and engineering. The human vessel appeared from hyperspace like something from ancient mythology, Rivera wrote. They came not for strategic advantage or economic gain, but because 43 people had sent a message asking for help. The implications of this rescue extend far beyond our survival. It suggests that humanity possesses something unique among spacefaring species, the willingness to sacrifice for strangers. 6 months later, Commander Lisa Park stood at the podium during the memorial service for the Liberty's crew. She was one of only 12 officers who had survived the collision, thrown clear in an escape pod during the final seconds before impact. Her words carried the weight of someone who had seen heroes die for others. Captain Hayes and the crew of the Liberty proved something important about who we are as a species, Lisa said to the crowd of thousands gathered on Earth. When someone calls for help, humans answer, distance does not matter. Danger does not matter. The odds do not matter. We come running because that is what we do. Danda. Alina Martinez held Lucy Chen on her lap. The little girl still carried her toy rabbit everywhere, and she had drawn pictures of the Liberty for every crew member who had died saving her. Amy Chen sat beside them, her own drawings scattered across her notebook as she tried to capture what she had. Witness the memorial service was broadcast across the galaxy. Alien species that had never heard of humans before learned their names. That day, the Kepler incident, as historians later called it, became the first chapter in humanity's reputation as the galaxy's unexpected guardians. On distant worlds, the story was told and retold, how a human warship had come screaming from the void when hope seemed lost, how 800 heroes had given their lives to save 43 strangers, how humanity had lit a beacon in the darkness that could never be extinguished. Other species began to understand that humans were different. When distress calls went out across the galaxy, human ships would come. They would risk everything to protect the innocent, even if it meant flying into certain death. The message was clear to anyone who cared to listen. When you think no help is coming, remember the Liberty. Remember that somewhere in the vast night, humans are listening, and they will come. In the years that followed, as humanity spread across the stars, they carried that promise with them. No call for help would go unanswered. No one would die alone. While humans drew breath, the Liberty was gone, but its legacy lived on in every human ship that raced toward danger to save lives. The galaxy had learned something new about the strange species from Earth. They had learned that humans keep their promises even unto death.